Hi, I'm Joe Connolly. The problem with all this information we all have now is figuring out what to make of it. So Ian Katz has founded a new real estate firm to help buyers only make sense of all of it. What is your pricing model? How does your firm get its revenues?
So the way the real estate business works here and in most locations in the country is we work under a co-brokerage model where my firm is a member of the Real Estate Board of New York, of which all firms, large and small, really, that transact in the New York area are members. In doing so, we all sign a co-brokerage agreement to share in commissions paid by sellers of property throughout the city.
Right.
So the seller essentially compensates, in all situations, all brokers from both sides of the table. So essentially, our services to the client who hires us are free. The seller's marketing fee or their listing commission, whether it's 4.5%, 5%, 5.5%, 6%, whatever it is split evenly between the listing agent and the buying agent. And that's pretty standard throughout the country when it comes to residential.
How did you see this opening?
So I began, like most brokers who want to get serious about brokerage in the city, with a large company, one of the top two. I spent 6 years there. And, my demographic, I'm 35 years old. Most of the buyers that I was working with as I grew up in the business in my late 20s, early 30s were first-time buyers or younger millennial buyers. And these are people who are not selling property. They're just buying for the first time, and they're entering the market. And in the last 5 to 10 years, you've seen a major proliferation in internet technology and listing technology, listing aggregation with Zillow, Trulia, StreetEasy, those kind of sites, where buyers could go and see the market, see listings online. But when it actually comes to calling brokers and going to see property, they were realizing that they were actually meeting with sellers' agents, and they weren't really, getting the proper protection that they needed in those instances. They would call the broker on a particular listing because it's online. They would show up, they'd be asked all these questions, and when it came time to negotiate, they realized at a later time that they were not protected or represented. So, I was in the business at this large firm, and I started to get more and more referrals and buyers in this segment, people who had the tools, the technology, and the self-starting philosophy to be looking at the market themselves, but realizing that they then wanted someone to kind of specialize on the buy side and consult purely from the perspective of a buyer. So it came from demand of clients who were more knowledgeable, I think, about the conflicts of interest that may exist with listing agents, as well as knowledgeable about the market itself, but didn't necessarily have the street know-how or knowledge to kind of negotiate and transact in our local market. With older sellers or older buyers who have gone through multiple properties and so on and are used to the older model of brokerage, they're more likely to, and I get those clients too, they're more likely to just call you up and be like, here's what I'm looking for, show me what you've got, and they don't really use the internet as much themselves. So bridging that gap between the more informed customer who also is more confused about what they're seeing and what they're hearing came kind of the idea and the understanding that maybe there's a niche here to help buyers like that.
You're not MLS, you're not realtor.com. They have to go someplace else. How do they discover you?
So, that's a good question. So basically, my business up to this point has been almost entirely word of mouth. And so networking and referrals has kind of driven a lot of our traffic.
Right.
And that, combined with the fact that I put out blog posts that have become more and more viral, and people are picking up on it through Google and through social media and the like, as well as just other kind of media. People are starting to kind of get a sense in a number of different markets in the country, and especially in New York, as there's more and more providers thinking of doing what I'm doing, what the business model is. And also, real estate is just, it's one of those things that kind of everyone in New York is always talking about, along with like politics and weather. So in their free time, people are always Googling or searching or asking their friends about who they're coming across. And so, yeah, the traditional model of getting a client as a real estate broker on the residential side is someone calls you on your listing, and if it's not a good fit, you might take them to see some other things. We're not using listings as a business driver. We're using purely happy clients as a business driver. So that's where we get our traffic.
How did you get those blogs out there on the social media? Because I looked at your blogs, and your blog log is really very good, and they're interesting. But you used them elsewhere, and then you put them on your website afterwards. You used them for marketing?
So I do. They start on the website, but I also have a listserv of a bit over 1,000 people that I've either worked with or come in contact with in 8 years in the business, 8 plus, almost 9 years. And so I'm constantly putting out communications, direct communications to those entities. And through that, they will bookmark the blog. They'll return to the blog, which I monitor through my analytics. And also, I've gotten picked up in different publications, local publications, as well as national, U.S. News, Brick Underground, and other places where people have seen an article that played off of one of the topics I've written about, or may go to my website because they saw my name, and then they end up at the blog, which is really where the most of the kind of neutral material is for people to consume. And as a buyer-focused agency, I, am educating a lot more than I am kind of pitching listings. Right. And it's through the education that my clients will select and hopefully execute on a home. And so providing that kind of content is good. One, for branding, just because that's our approach to the sales process, but also for people who want to consume the information. So it's through, kind of our hot list of email addresses that we've gathered over the years, and also just through being picked up in various places.